Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of the season finale of Loki for all time, always. And I really enjoyed this one, and am interested to see all the kind of ramifications that come from this, because, ooh, Nelly, this has changed the MCU from what's going on. There are big repercussions that are going to be falling out from this. And we have also gotten confirmation that there will be a second season of this. And with how they handle the setup and everything, at the end of this, I could definitely see that, and it would definitely be an interesting journey. So, I liked this finale, and overall, the season was pretty good with two so episodes, pretty much. And even though there wasn't a lot of movement on what was going on, uh, I still think that it was a pretty engaging episode for what we got, and that the information that we got was very important and actually delivered in a pretty interesting kind of way. So we get in and we see that Loki and Sylvie are pretty much coming up to the Citadel at the end of time and seeing what's going on. Now, granted, before that, we see like everything Big Bang wise and all these different kind of things, different kind of voice lines going on to show the Citadel at the end of time and how it kind of is like encircled by the sacred timeline. So we get that off the bat to kind of show us kind of our positioning in the universe at this point. So they're getting up there. There's some back and forth between them on how to get into it. She was going to kick the door open, but she thought that Loki would caution against that, and he's like, no, kind of do what you want. And of course, she's amped up because she's been trying to get to this point her whole life. And of course, it opens up, and they're kind of like going through it, and we see that Miss Minutes pops up and is there to pretty much give them an offer from the person who's behind all this, He Who Remains, saying that he'll put them back into the timeline, give them pretty much everything they want. Loki can kill Thanos, take the Infinity Gauntlet, rule over all, and have his throne. Sylvie can get happy memories and everything. They can all even be on the same timeline together. But of course, this is that kind of like Last Temptation kind of thing, and they're like, screw that noise, and they kind of go on through. Let's see, how do we want to deal with this? So they're pretty much looking around, and I do like how this is set up because the Citadel looks impressive but kind of broken because it looks in like a state of disrepair. We even see some statues, well, mainly one statue that's fallen over. And then they kind of get to this kind of place, and we see this kind of lift come down, and we see this man walk out. He's like, hey, how you guys doing? You kind of want to come with me to talk in my office? They're just like, what the hell's going on? Him eating an apple and all that. They go on, and of course, Sylvie tries to kill him. He's like, so we're still kind of doing that kind of thing? Let's talk and everything. Well, he talks about that. Of course, they would have to attempt to try and kill him at some point to see like what the fuck is going on. He's like, no, I'm just a man. But he's able to dodge their kind of attempts at trying to kill his ass, and he kind of walks out into the office. I was like, hey, guys, have a seat. Get some drinks and stuff like that. And of course, they rarely sit down before we start getting into the meat of it. And this, of course, does line up with what we see with the rest of everything, but let's kind of deal with that stuff first because it links up. So we see that Mobius goes and confronts Renslayer, and he's pretty much like, why'd you betray me? And she's like, no, I didn't betray you. You betrayed me and everything. It's like, you betrayed everything that we stood for and all that. It's like, right, and taking variance and making this whole kind of thing is not really right. But we kind of figure out the justification for it when we learn from He Who Remains. So, they're pretty much like hitting each other, and she's like, how are you going to like screw over the TVA? Well, we find out that due to the pen, Hunter B-15 was able to pretty much go to 2018 Ohio, and we find her main person that she's a variant of. And of course the TVA is like, what the fuck, the other hunters? And of course, Mobius is bringing up the fact that this is like defeating free will and everything. And she hits back that free will is for only for those in charge. And that also Miss Minutes gave her information from He Who Remains because she's like, this isn't the information I asked for. And he's like, well, Miss Minutes is like, well, this is what he thought would be useful to you. And she kind of uses a temp pad, goes through, and she's like, I'm going to go get free will. So she's in the wind, even towards at the end of this. So it's like, okay. And of course, that kind of lines up with what kind of goes in the comics with the character. So we'll kind of, not that I'm that well versed with the character, but she usually is in these kind of weird kind of doing her own kind of thing and dealing with time like this. So that's that. Pretty much Mobius was like going to try and stop her, but she kicked his ass. Not much, mind you, but stopped him from taking her out, and she decided not to take him out and decided to go get free will, so she wants to be the one in charge. It's like, alright, we'll kind of have to see how that kind of goes for you. That's where we lead them off until pretty much the end of the episode. The meat of this matter gets into the fact that we see that He Who Remains starts talking about, like, pretty much why he set up the TVA. Because they're just, like, anything you say is going to be a lie and a manipulation for us and all that. It's like, yeah, I could see that you're going to be saying that because this is all laid out like the path, but the whole point is the journey to the destination. And definitely kind of like heavy allusions to like the Wizard of Oz and like the Man Behind the Curtain, and we get that view with the Man Behind the Curtain, and he's definitely an interesting character. I really like the actor that they got for this guy because he just kind of sells it. But the thing is, with how this kind of ends, he's definitely going to have some interesting things to do going forward because of how it opens up. Because we start getting his information and his kind of backstory because they're like, why'd you make the TVA and all that kind of stuff? And then he starts laying out that, of course, he was like a scientist on Earth in the 31st century, and that lines up with Kang the Conqueror. Now, granted, he, of course, has gone by many names, and he even alludes to that. A ruler, a conqueror, all that kind of stuff. And it's a really good way to do it because the thing is, there are a lot of variations of Kang, and not all of them go by the name Kang either, so him being He Who Remains works pretty well. But he starts explaining, like, yeah, trying to find some stuff, and then finding out the existence of, like, the multiverse and everything, and talking with other variants of himself, and they were, like, sharing technology, and, like, doing all this kind of stuff, and having a good kind of time, before, of course, they started running into variants of his that were less benevolent and less peaceful, and starting a whole multiversal war that was pretty much threatening to destroy everything. Now, you could also say that, like, hey, this is a lot like Rick and Morty, and it's like, yeah, they probably got that kind of idea from all the different kind of multiverse and all that kind of thing from these kind of things as well. Now, granted, not one for one, so people be like, they're copying Rick and Morty. Kang the Conqueror's been around a lot longer. So, I like that there's similarities, but it's like, and I like that this is being brought into the fore because he's like, yeah, it started to get to the chaos thing where we were pretty much going to wipe everything out. But during his kind of trials and tribulations, he was able to find the entity Alioth. And, of course, he was able to tame it to his whims. And then, of course, started to create the TVA to kind of stop that kind of multiversal war from happening again. And it is a conundrum. Do I think that there are vastly better ways than how he's doing it, of pretty much taking variants, stocking them in the TVA to keep one solid track going? Yes. But understanding that how, depending upon what kind of version of Kang you get with, you're going to have a hard fucking time kind of like keeping that motherfucker in check. So, it's a really interesting ethical and moral conundrum because he even brings that up as like, I understand your moral objections and everything, but it's like this or like complete and unrestrained chaos. I'm like, that's pretty bad to just go with those kind of like choices. There's gotta, I mean, granted, we all don't want like a giant multiversal war that would unravel the entire fabric of all of reality and have it just completely shit the bed. But this kind of order is completely and utterly wrong and completely destroys free will. And, of course, we see Loki and Sylvie trying to kind of come to terms with what's going on. It's like, this is just a lie. This is manipulation. It's like, yeah, you saying all that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, sure, if you believe me or you're not believing me. So you got two main choices here. You can both work together and head the TVA and do it however you wish to continue this going on, or you can kill me and it'll kick off a multiversal war. It's like, holy shit, that's a pretty kind of big linchpin of things going on there. It's like, wow, to be able to wrangle that kind of thing to a point where you're that kind of linchpin to existence and being like, yeah, I'm kind of tired of this. And it's funny because he brings up, yeah, even if you kill me, there's like reincarnation, baby. It's, you just see my ass again. But Loki's like, he's really taking it in because, of course, he is the god of lies and the god of mischief. And he can understand a lie. He's like, I don't believe that this dude's kind of lying. And he who remains is tired. He's unfathomably old and just wants to be done with it. And then, of course, we get the main kind of crux and the main kind of conflict in this episode between Loki and Sylvie. Sylvie just wants to kill him right off the bat, and I understand her reaction to that. She has been severely wronged with this and has been hiding in apocalypses and being screwed over, but of course he who remains sits back. Hey, you've murdered people. You're a hypocrite. Nah. Now granted, that doesn't change the fact that like they've both done horrible things, but vengeance is truly clouding her. And it really is an interesting way of being like, okay, what is the better path here? And there is no true easy answer here. Because I understand that she wants justice for what was done to her, but she goes on the route of vengeance. And there is a difference here because you kill this dude and everything that he's built and everything that he's done to keep all of these different timelines in check starts to go out the wayside. Now, if you got, it's because that's the thing. He even talks about how if you take out the dictator, something worse could come into its place. And we kind of start seeing how that could happen at the end of this. And it's because nature abhors a vacuum. It's like, okay, we take him out. Do we take the place? What goes on here? How do we fight his variants and everything as effectively? And it's like, that's even a problem in the fucking comic books. So it's like, holy shit. And the thing is, she's like gung-ho ready to go, and Loki's trying to like talk her down, but like, listen, we need to talk about this for a second. And the thing is, he's not saying to no. He's pretty much like, killing him would not be the best option because this will probably tip off like a giant fucking thing that is going to be horrendous for everybody involved. And she, of course, is thinking that he just wants a throne, but even seeing our endgame Loki, this is even bigger than what he was thinking and kind of is understanding why these mechanisms were put into place. He's not even thinking about like ruling that kind of chaos. He's just thinking of like what would happen. It's like, oh god, what happens if there are stronger beings that start having variants and just start wiping out timelines and existences? I mean, the TVA is doing that, but what if this is on such a wide scale that it's like unfathomable? And he's trying to like talk her down, and they're fighting, and the thing is, Sylvie is trying to like get him out of her way, and Loki is trying to like stop her as well as possible, and it's a pretty decent fight scene. You see him utilizing their powers very effectively to try and stop each other. It's like, Sylvie, I just want you, let's talk about this for a minute. And he's not like he wants to rule this place and he doesn't want to do this whole thing. It's just he wants to make a choice that works out and that Sylvie is okay. And that's a great kind of line before they kiss. And then she's like, we're not on the same page kind of thing. And uses pretty much the temp pad that he who remains had like pushed towards them and pushes Loki back into the TVA. And that's where, of course, she advances on him and kills him. That's where he brought up the whole reincarnation baby. It's like, hope you're ready to see the others of me, kind of fact. And she then sits down and cries as we see the timelines and everything just start breaking off and big fucking chaos ensuing. It's like, yeah, you're gonna kind of have to. This is definitely gonna link up because this is gonna be a lot of chaos and shit. And who is? We'll have to see if like Wanda gets even more powerful, because of like how this would unleash a lot of chaotic energy and everything, and see all these other kind of things in effect. So everything starts going to nuts, and it's like, oh shit. We then also see the TVA. We see Mobius and B-15 trying to figure out kind of what's going on, and like everything's just, you just see the timeline breaking. It's like, all right, we'll have to see what happens to Sylvie, and of course, Loki gets to him and is trying to explain to them what was going on. He Who Remains. All of these variants are going to like be popping up. We're going to have a lot of issues. Like, hey, dude, calm down. You're an analyst here, right? And he's like, what's going on? We got a lot of shit that we got to like deal with. And then we look back out over the TVA and we see that instead of the Timekeepers, it is a version of He Who Remains, more in the traditional kind of garb of Kang the Conqueror now being in charge of the TVA. So that's a big kind of thing to kind of end it on. And then of course we also get the teaser, hey, Loki's gonna have a season 2. And this is big because this introduces, of course, us to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and that's kind of one of the things of the Sorcerer Supreme to kind of keep that shit in check, and now it's all everywhere. And I know it when I say that like the multiversal war is going to be kicking off, it doesn't sound, it's just on such a scale that it's saying it is one thing, but seeing what is going to be done is a whole nother thing. I'm wondering if they're going to potentially be bringing in Jonathan Hickman's run of like incursions, where of course we get the same thing of like universes bumping into each other in the multiverse kind of way, and one having to win out over the other. This could introduce a whole field of different kind of things to go on, like we would be getting different kind of versions of characters. I mean, hell, we could get the whole Hydra Cap having to fight Sam Cap at some point because of everything going on. Of course, this helps to bring out that there are different universes now, so it can be easier to bring in the X-Men and the other Spider-Men, since there's been chatter that Spider-Man, the third one, could potentially be bringing in and making that almost like a live-action into the Spider-Verse, where we see potentially Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, alongside Tom Holland. And then, of course, linking and fusing and doing all kinds of shit together. Granted, we also have gotten Deadpool pretty much in the MCU when he did like a reaction thing with him and Korg from Thor Ragnarok and Avengers Endgame. This is a big thing. This opens up a lot of possibilities for a lot of different and strange and interesting stories, while also doing like the whole what if scenarios. The Watchers have got to be like, the fuck, man, oh shit, oh, and because they're usually pretty much put to non-interference, they're probably like, we got a problem, big mucho grande problem. It's like, oh shit. So the thing is, they have a lot of potential here for a lot of interesting stories to like occur and just do butt fuck wild shit. And I hope they go with that. And we'll just kind of have to see how that kind of works out, because this is a very nice setup to having like the evilest of Kangs doing something nuts and having him set up as the Avengers level threat, depending upon what he does and how he tries to fuck with shit, because it could get really weird if he's like fucking with like shit that happened in the past, which he has a tendency to fucking do, or things in the future and all that kind of shit. Granted, the downside is that fucked up time travel shit is definitely going to be like the biggest kind of thing here, and hopefully we're able to get kind of better rules for what's going on, because I wasn't a fan of how the rules were kind of played out in Endgame, and this opening up like this could have the potential of having fucked up, weird ass time travel rules that can contradict each other. So that is a thing that must be watched out for. But it sets up a nice kind of thing of like, oh god, they pretty much think that Loki's an analyst and he's going to have to deal with this Kang having to head over this TVA, which now means that there's probably infinite TVAs, and how he's going to have to deal with that. It's like, I didn't know how they were going to kind of handle Loki's character, but I loved even seeing, like, technically Endgame Loki going and having his kind of change, because it's not the exact same that we saw from, like, the original Avengers all the way up to when he died in Infinity War. This is a Loki that has seen some fucked up shit and is trying to come to terms and trying to figure out what he wants to do and how he's going to do that. So it's like, ooh, there's a lot of story potential and a lot of cool character potential for him as well. Especially with what has happened with him and Sylvie, and what Sylvie is going to, how she is going to feel now that she has unleashed this multiversal war because of her vengeance, and how that will change her and how that will affect her actions going forward. So, alright. We got a lot of big stuff. I'm interested to see how this kind of works out, and overall I was pretty happy with this season. Barring the kind of like so-so kind of episodes that I was like, okay, they could have done a little bit better here, but overall, this is the one that I like the most out of the Marvel shows that we've gotten on the Disney Plus, because there was a good amount of issues with WandaVision, and there were a good amount of issues with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So, yeah, I enjoyed this, and can't wait to see where this goes from here. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day. Hey everybody, got my own post-credit scenes now, motherfuckers! Ha ha! And I was just mainly doing this because Fantastic Four, bitches! That is the big kind of also drop out that we get of the introduction of Kang the Conqueror. And it's important because of how his comic book origins are tied into the Fantastic Four, because he's Nathaniel Richards, descendant of Reed Richards, and that's a pretty big thing, and it lines up with what He Who Remains gave us his origin story, being in the 31st century on Earth and all that kind of stuff. So that's a big kind of thing to tie the Fantastic Four into the MCU like this. Now, I understand that Marvel doesn't have a clear idea of what they really want to do with the Fantastic Four at this point, and normally I'd be like, hey, I'd rather kind of have the beginnings of the Fantastic Four done first, but if you're introducing time travel and everything that goes along with it in, like, Endgame, it's really hard to ignore Kang, and I just think it was a really kind of cool way to be like, hey, here's the Fantastic Four, guys. We got him, and it's definitely going to be a big part because we've got Kang doing everything that he's doing. So I just thought it would be a little bit funny to kind of add my own kind of little post-credits kind of scene thing and talk about this little thing, since it's kind of important. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you guys have a good day.